So welcome everyone to Sensei's Ask an Expert webinar for January 2025. Our topic today is what's new in AI for project management in 2025. Next, please, Orion. Just a few housekeeping before we begin. If you could please remain on mute throughout the presentation, that would be amazing. If you do have a question, just use the raise your hand tool or the chat function. We will, however, be having a Q&A at the end. Thank you, Ryan. So today we have our host as Ryan Darby, and I'll pass it over to you, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Welcome, everyone. Happy January, Happy New Year. We're going to talk about new things in 2025. Good way to start the year. And because AI, as usual, is a very hot topic and seems to have been in the news a lot as the year started, we're going to cover off AI and project management in 2025 and what we see emerging. So we'll talk about why this is still important. We will look at Gartner, because we don't make it all up ourselves. We will look at what Gartner thinks and what they think is the most important thing that's coming through the year. And we'll talk a bit about how you should think about AI. And this will come from a couple of other large organizations and how they're thinking about it. And we're going to talk about agents. So agents is very much in the news. If you haven't come across this, we'll explain to you what it is. And then there'll also, if you are following along what Microsoft is doing, there's Microsoft Copilot Chat, there's Microsoft Copilot, there's all these different things, and they keep changing the names. So we will go through what that is. But the good news is there's some more stuff for you coming. Okay, so first thing, I did need to bring some hot topic news in. America had their presidential inauguration, last week or something, week before. And one of the things announced was Project Stargate, which actually made me pay attention. Then I realized it's nothing to do with Stargate. It's something to do with AI, okay? But it is actually quite important. So what they have done, for anyone who doesn't know, is they have committed money, largely money that was actually already committed, but they've committed money to expanding out their capability. And it's specifically around building the processing power. The issue is that as AI grows and grows, Microsoft was not able to get, and OpenAI was not able to get the processing power they needed. They need 500 billion, which is a lot of money, to actually increase this. Now, having said that, so this is a good thing for us, okay? It just means there's even more power behind what we're using. But then, very recently, the Chinese competitor, DeepSeek, pops up. Now, the Chinese have been working on AI for a long time, but they are two different worlds. So what we do in the West versus what happens in China, they do not sort of cross over. They are not able to use OpenAI there, and we don't really see what they're doing so much. But there has been a lot of work. You can see Chinese investors talking on YouTube occasionally about this. And something has popped up as DeepSeek, which is, let's call it a competitor to OpenAI. The newsworthy part is that it is an improvement. It's an efficiency gain. It's not necessarily something so different, but it shows that you can do things in a bit more of an efficient way. The American approach tends to be to throw money and processing power at it. The Chinese have taken a different approach. They're very much more, we're kind of battling against constraints here. We don't have all the processing power. They can't get all the hardware. It's not that easy because it's not allowed to be sold to them. So they're finding ways to actually do it faster and cheaper. What this means for us is just that the world moves forward and things get better, okay? So it's not going to change our world in the short term at least, or medium term, but it does mean everyone will pay attention and do things in a better way. Now, why is any of this important? Well, your superannuation balance was slightly affected by the change in the stock market when the Chinese made their announcement. But for our day-to-day lives, why are we thinking about this? And the reason we're thinking about it is because we want successful projects. Now, what I wanted to share here first is an updated definition of success that's come from the PMI. This is quite interesting. This came out last year. It's not the old, it must be within time, budget, and scope, the old iron triangle. They've gone beyond that. It's really around value. Did the project deliver value that was worth the effort and expense? To get to this definition, or to deliver projects to this new definition, we need to change how we think about these things and what we do. So project managers, which are a lot of people on this call, and PMOs, need to start focusing on value as opposed to tracking every single line in a spreadsheet and doing all that grunt work. This also means that organizations and their management need to start thinking of project managers more as a partner, more as a change agent, and less of as an administrator who spends all their time updating spreadsheets and manually typing up 5 different versions of a status report. So we start having a bit of a shift. Now, how are we going to have the shift? So because today you've got 100 spreadsheets to fill in, and someone wants you to come up a level and focus on value. Well, this is why we think about AI. The primary purpose of AI in this is to make the project management process be more successful so that the project can be more successful. So let's get rid of the grunt work for you. So we've said this for a while now, but are people paying attention? Well, a state of LLMs in business process of the survey has looked at this, and 82% of business leaders are bought into the hype. And they've used the word hype around language models, specifically the language model, things like the chat GPTs of the world, the Copilots, that type of thing, that type of AI. But see, this is where the shift is coming. 89% of them believe that the benefit is not going to be in having a nice chatbot or using it to do your homework or helping you plan your holiday or get a recipe or something, which is what people seem to be doing, but rather it's going to be to apply generative AI to business processes. And that's what we're going to start sort of unpacking through today. That is the main change you're going to see through this year in terms of project management is AI, yes, it's there, but it's now actually having a real purpose. And this is to improve business processes or project management processes, very much PMO processes. Those who are doing it, so 35% so far are reporting measurable improvements in terms of that, whereas others are just not getting any benefits. They keep reworking their process and nothing kind of happens. Okay, so it's getting a bit more important where it's not a toy, it's for business processes now. But you may be sitting there thinking, and why should I care? Okay. Well, the reason you should care is because CEOs are starting to pay attention to this, and they are sifting through the hype here. The Gartner curve, I didn't bring up, but it's come kind of down in terms of Gen AI, and we're sort of coming into that disillusionment area where people are starting to get disillusioned, but they're also then starting to find real use cases for it. And this is where agents come in. So agents is helping us with business processes as opposed to just chatbots. We're also seeing that the AI models are becoming useful. And a little test for you, mental exercise is think back to all the memes we used to get. So a year, 2 years ago, it was all about, it's hallucinating and it's doing all this crazy stuff. We don't see so much of that anymore. It still happens a bit, but things have improved significantly. Reasoning and calculation, which are not typically part of a language model, are now becoming available, becoming really good within this. And something that is coming out now within Gen AI is the concept of memory. This is one of its inflection points where the industry shifts, because if it can actually remember and then use its memory of all your interactions, all your data from the past, you will see it as worth using because it's actually helping you now. Okay, so this is starting to become really useful and definitely not going away. It's getting a lot more perfect, still not there yet, but as I said, it's not going away, so you definitely want to get your head around some of it. What does Gartner think, though? So it's fine for Sensei to say this, but we are led by the very large organizations. So what Gartner is predicting is that agents and governance are the two emerging trends, which basically, if we translate this into project management speak, it's using AI within processes, so business processes, PMO processes, and making sure that the governance is put in place on the use of the AI and the data. These are very much foundational, where it has a great example of let's use a chatbot to do something. That's a nice little toy. Where we start actually adjusting the business processes in a clever way, that becomes really important. So how is it different though? So what's going to change? So what I want to do is just kind of go through how AI works today. So the way it basically works today is that you sit at your computer and you think about what you need. You open up your Copilot or your ChatGPT, or you've got AI within Altus if you've got that option, and you think about your prompt and you structure your prompt. And it goes off, it looks at some data, and it comes back and gives that to you, and then goes to sleep. This is very much a traditional approach of any computer. You have to be as engaged as a human. You have to remember how to use something, and you've got to go in, you've got to then go and get that output, and you yourself must decide what to do with that output. We've been doing this since the invention of these computers, okay? But now it starts changing. The concept of agents come in. So there's a screenshot from Satya Nadella of Microsoft, busy introducing the agents. Now, they're not quite androids like that one on the screen, but they are getting important. So we're seeing 2028, I think it'll be quicker than that, 33, so third of the enterprise software applications start including agents. And it just means it's not just AI within software, which is kind of what everyone's done so far. They just put a chatbot of some sort in there. It's actually getting the agents, it's kind of like building roles, almost like building people into these applications. And these things start then thinking and reasoning for you. So what that really means is, what is an agent? Well, it's a workflow, essentially. It's a role. It's like you've got an assistant, really, working for you, or multiple of these. They make decisions. They follow a process and make decisions. So basically a workflow. And they do it by using AI and using the information you feed into them to reason and make decisions. So you could say, yeah, but that's just a workflow. Give me a report on a workflow. Well, the difference here is that this thing is not so hard-coded. So if you have a workflow now and a report used to make decisions, this has been built for you. It's rigid. If your process changes or you want to change something, or there's a bit of an edge case, you have to get a developer and you've got to go and change this. So very much a rigid way of doing it, and it follows the rules. There is no reasoning behind it. It can't say, well, I didn't just follow my programming. I looked at 5 different documents, one of which is brand new that you've given me, and I can see that you humans out there are starting to think differently about things, so I'm going to use that as part of my reasoning. So think of it like this, okay? An example is, and we'll look at this later, I want to create a project in the project management system, Altus in our case. Instead of just blindly creating it, I actually want to follow the PMO policy. I want to check what type of project it needs to be. I want to maybe go do some governance checks. Like, have you thought about the benefits? Have you thought about the risks? Do these things, and then I'll go and create it. And also want to send the boss an email to remind them that this has been created. So it's a bit more intelligent is what we're actually looking for here. The way to think of it is, I can see Ellie on the screen, so I'm going to use Ellie as an example. Ellie comes into the PMO, and I say, hey, Ellie, your job is to take this project management or this PMO process, which tells you how to create projects. So people are going to come to you and they're going to say, here, I want to create this project. You are going to check they've actually filled the form in properly. You're going to ask a bunch of questions. You're going to decide what type of project it is. You're going to decide, like, hey, go back and get some more information on the risks. You're going to figure all that out. So it's like you have a new person that you're explaining how things should be done to in your PMO. Well, let's remove Ellie and put a robot in place, the Ellie bot, and this becomes an agent. Is essentially what this is. So that's a way of actually thinking about these. Now, Copilot. You've seen us talk about Copilot all the time. It could be like, well, what agents, Copilot, Microsoft's confusing me. Yeah, they are a bit. But a Copilot becomes a front end. It's still the chatbot, essentially. It's the front end using AI to help you explain in words what you're trying to do. It then sends it to agents who are going to then figure out what you're trying to do and call each other and talk to each other and call the systems behind it, okay? So you as the project manager, say, goes to someone in the PMO who then takes the form, makes sure it's written in English, and gives it across to Ellie, who then works out, okay, I'm going to follow this process, that process. I think the project needs to be created this way, etc. Now, this is quite different from existing applications. Existing applications follow the CRUD model. Okay, so those who think it's a funny word, think back to the 70s and 80s. We're learning about this: create, read, update, and delete. They're rigid systems. So a person thinks about what they want to do, what they want. They've got to type it into a computer. The logic is fixed. And if this thing integrates to other systems, like the finance system, etc., anyone makes a change to that, to any of this, you've got to then go make massive changes to the application. This is an expensive way to do it. The future then becomes an agent-based approach. So instead of having these rigid systems, like all the software as a service systems we've got now, very rigid, you have to memorize your way through these things. You have to know exactly what screen to go to. If you change the logic or you change integration, you've got to go and change a lot of things. So now instead, we go up to Ellie, for example, the agent, and we say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Ellie then sits and thinks. It becomes an abstraction layer in terms of being the agent. The agent becomes an abstraction layer. Says, I will figure out what you're trying to do. I will look at all the information you've given me, and I will figure out what other systems I need to call to actually do it. So if you decide to change the finance system, the agent doesn't care, but just change a connector, call something else. If you decide to change your process, you don't have to go and rewire this entire system. You just feed it a text document. And so the old process is out, the new process is in, read that. And it's like, just like you would go up to a human and say, hey, read this. Okay, you understand what's new now? Can you do your job? Yes, you can. And the agent will then work that out for you. So it becomes this kind of blob in the middle that thinks about what you've asked it to do and then thinks about all the different information it's got, calls other agents or other systems to then go and update them and deal with them. So very different, much more flexible approach. So we're going to look at a bit of an example. So the example we're going to use is person wants to create a project. This is a simple example, but I think it shows off a few things. Person wants to create a project. They would typically go up to the PMO, or maybe they fill a form in online somewhere, and they provide some detail. That would then be put into Altus. The problem is that very often, as you all know, those of you PMO people here know that there's always a bit of backwards and forwards on this. It's like, I want to create a project. I'm like, okay, what do you want the project to do? I want it to give me a benefit. So could you elaborate that a bit more? Could you give me help me understand the risks? Could you help me understand the size? You're going to spend a lot of time going back and forth. So wouldn't it be nice if you had an assistant to work with you to deal with all that noise and interference, okay? To work out, does it have enough information? To also work out who should know about it, what type of project it is and who should know, and then let them know and actually send that communication off. To also go and look at like, hey, does this align to your strategy? So I can point to your website and I can see all the strategy there. Does it actually align to that? If not, go back, rethink what you're trying to do a little bit. So this is the type of thing that agents can do without me needing to go and do a massive customization around some system. The agent can do this for me, so it can effectively think. So let's have a little look. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is find, here we go. Okay. So I've got an agent called Project Creator, and this, I'm going to shake up the different screens here. This one is sitting in Teams. So many different interfaces, Teams being one of them, Copilot within Teams. So what we have here is you've gone in, it's kind of introduced itself, and you can see a bit of information where I've said, hey, I need to create a project. It's then asked for more information. You can't just ask for that. It's come back and said, give me some more, okay? I've given it a bit more. It's then gone and said, okay, it's enough. It's gone and created it. That's the first simple option. We can take it further, though. We can say, okay, I actually want it to question me a bit. I don't want to just blindly create a project because Ryan said so. So I'm going to go behind the scenes here a bit and show you a bit how these are created. So see, this is a box, a container, and within that, we can describe in English, really, in language, what we want this agent to do. And we can also include what information I want you to look at. I want you to look at some information in Altus. I want you to look at my process documentation, which I've done in Word. That's what I'm going to do. I'm human. I write in Word in my language, and you take care of the rest. I don't want to have to go and code that into software. I can point you at some websites as well. Now, what it does is, it is basically looking at this document. So this is a very simple example that shows the point. We have different types of projects, and these are the rules for how you classify them. So I think this is part of the whole process. We're also able to tell it that we want you to ask some questions around, don't just do it, but also make sure they've thought about some benefits, for example. So I'm going to do it over here. You can see on the right-hand side, I'm going to create a project called the Abbey Road Pedestrian Crossing Repaint. It'll take 6 months and cost $120,000. Okay. that's a basic starting point. Now, what I wanted to do, hopefully it does, is come back to me, and you'll see how it's thinking over here. So I'm showing you behind the scenes, just so you can kind of see the type of logic to what these demystify the agent a bit. So it's gone to check the knowledge sources. So it's looking at all of my my process documentation. And it's then said, okay, I've checked all these things. I've figured out what project type it is. But I've now gotten to a point, and I've gone to Altus in our case, and I've compared it to say, you're trying to create a project. The process says it should be major project or minor project or something. Is that actually what's in Altus? Is your system and your process in line with each other? So you're doing that check. And then it's come back and said, okay, that's cool, but you know what? I want some more information. Low risk, and the risk involves peak hour traffic being delayed. What else did I want? I want the benefits. The benefits, I think, increased tourism in Liverpool. Okay. So you can, this is a simple little one, we'll just accept that. But basically, we are able to, I'm not going to say program this, we are able to train this thing to ask more and more information, probing questions, etc. So what it's done is it's going, okay, cool, I've worked out that you are a minor project, or type minor project, and it's gone off and created it. So if we look in, there's all my Abbey Road ones, and if we look in Altus, we will see, there is our project, okay, it's minor project. So it's gone and created that for us. So a very simple thing. It's also, if I go to Outlook, it will have sent an email to the appropriate person. There we go. And it has said, hey, dear project office, new project called Repaint project's been created. And we can tell it what type of information we actually want to include in that. Okay. Now, the reason to show you this is just to show you how easy these things can actually be. So this is a simple example of process. I hate to use the word process automation, but it's basically process automation in a reasoning and intelligent way. It's actually quite simple. So this is something to think about. So you are able to start introducing the AI as a collection of these agents that become all those assistants you ever needed, especially the PMO people on the call will know what I mean here. You always wish you had time to go and do the governance on things, to go and make sure the communication's happening, etc. If you could hire an army of people to do that for you, that's what agents actually are. Okay, so have a think about these things. But not all of you are, some of you may be thinking, okay, that's cool, that's PMO stuff, that's process stuff, but why should I care? Well, as a project manager, there is some AI within some of these tools already for you. So what we're going to look at is Planner Premium. Now, unfortunately, the cool part I couldn't show you. There is a new agent in Planner Premium called the Project Manager Agent, Project Agent. It's actually really, I've only described it, unfortunately, because Microsoft has only released it in preview and in the in North America. Okay, so we just do not have it over here yet. Oh, sorry. So let me just move Teams out of the way. There we go. Okay, so this is Planner Premium, or with an accelerator added into it. It gives us a simple way to manage projects if you're not trying to do anything complicated. Within this, I can have different projects or plans, as I call them. I'm going to go into this one, so the AI rollout project. One of the things I would like is some help with thinking about my project, planning my project. At the moment, you have Copilot within here. Some of you may have seen this already, and it can do things like, hey, create tasks for me. So I could say, let's create, so add tasks, let's say add tasks to add detailed tasks for the rollout of Microsoft Copilot in a software company. Let's see what it does. Now, this is a very point kind of thing I'm trying to do here. The agent that's coming takes us a step up. And what it actually does is it helps me think about my project. So it starts in the beginning with my goals. Like, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve here? And it then starts breaking it down, helps me think about these and kind of plan the entire thing out and eventually get to the point where it will build out your schedule. It will help you come up with your risks and your issues and all these things as well for you. So it's a much more holistic approach to thinking about these projects. This is coming soon. It is something that is, as I said, in preview in the US at the moment. We think it should get to us in March, is the date from Microsoft, but we will see. Well, hopefully it will be a bit quicker. It does seem to be coming out quickly. It's definitely worth something to watch. So what it is, if we just use our analogy of an agent, is like an employee you've got, an assistant. It is a project management system. Instead of me going in and typing in every single one of these. So if I want to do, say, update all of the planning tasks to be 50% complete. See if that works. I want an assistant to do the stuff for me. I don't want to have to go and do all these things myself. Okay. So has it? No, it has not done it. Naughty, naughty. Okay. Probably have to save it and refresh it. But this is the type of thing it's actually able to do. In this case, it's only working on the tasks. The new agent that's coming is giving me this ability to do it across the entire project, from planning to interacting with it. So I have an assistant. I have a personal project assistant, as opposed to me needing to sit and type all the stuff in myself. Typing things boring. That's the grunt work. Project managers come up a level and they start thinking about value and where is this project fitting in with the overall strategy? How do I keep the stakeholders happy? Where do I get the time to actually communicate and manage the change and work on the stakeholder relationships? Well, you get it because the agent is going to be doing this grunt work for you. Okay. So now, having kind of shown you the concept of agents, let's try and demystify the Microsoft landscape at the moment. So some of you will have seen that there's been a change to Copilot. The logo's changed a bit. They brought out Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. Well, what is that and how is that different from Microsoft 365 Copilot? Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat used to be the old Bing Chat. Okay, it's gone through a couple of renamings over time. So we'll have a bit of a look at it. But what it is, first of all, it's free. Okay, it was nice. And secondly, it's actually able to do useful things now. Where it's not just a search anymore. It's actually able to look at some data. So it's a new things. You can upload files into it, which you means you can have your data looked at. The thing it can't do, this is in the paid version, is actually connect your enterprise data. Like that agent I had, just an example, is connecting to Altus. Okay, it's also connecting to our SharePoint internally. Here, you've got to go and upload these things yourself. It is able to, it's web, you can look at web pages, whereas the paid version can look at your enterprise data overall. Both of them do have enterprise level protection on it. I actually had an error this morning where my agent came back to me and said that what I was asking it to do, and I was not asking it to do anything weird, what I was asking it to do was not in line with responsible AI practices. I was like, okay, that seems a bit strict. I was just trying to get a project running. But it does show you that this thing is watching, okay? You are able to create agents within Copilot Chat, so you can either use them or create them yourself. Like the one I showed you before, it's a bit more complicated. It's integrating to an Altus system. But if you just want an agent to look at your internal processes or help you understand what's been going on in meetings, etc., you can do that with these, okay? The paid one will look at your internal data. What is nice is both can use what is called Copilot pages. So what these are about is, I will show you. So once you use Copilot, that's all very well and fine. But then what do you do with it? Okay. So I need a click a breakdown of the potential risks to implementing Microsoft Copilot in a government organization. Okay, so I'm using Copilot to help me do a bit of thinking. I've been handed this project and I've got to think about these things now. Okay, so it's come up now. This one is looking at work data. This is looking internally at information that I've got within here. Okay, I could point it at the web, but switch that over. Okay, so paid version, free version. But now, if I then say, where is my pages button? Right up there. The one thing I wanted to show you I now cannot find. Okay, what should have been there? Something goes wrong in every demo. This is, our thing going wrong. What should be happening is this all gets put onto a page on the right here. It builds a web page of this information, essentially, on the right, and then lets me share that information. So I can now invite Ellie, for example, to say, hey, I've done this. I've now created something, and we can now work on it together. So Ellie is able to come in and then start working with us and modifying it. So we use AI to create content, and then we use within Copilot and Teams, we're actually able to then share this and continue working with it and collaborate within this. Okay, so this makes life very interesting in terms of how we actually collaborate around these things. Okay, so if you do get it, well, you all have it. This is essentially a detailed view of what's different. Basically, these copilots are very similar, except it's your work data within your own tenant and graph. The free version is not giving you that. The paid version is. Okay. Agents, both can call agents, but you have to build the agent separately. But both of them actually have agent functionality within them. So within here, here are two agents that were created. We use these for like pre-sales agents. So can Altus manage risks? So it is looking at a whole lot of internal information to work that out. It gives you an idea of the type of thing that you're actually able to build in. And you can go and build these things in yourself. Okay, now, I'm going to make sure we've got lots of time for questions here, so we will end a bit earlier. If you like what you've seen, what do you do next? Well, you can talk to us, and we're more than happy to help you. We have some standard workshops that can help you think about these things. But we also look to other organizations. The Mayo Clinic, I'm sure you've all heard of the Mayo Clinic, largest healthcare provider in the world. They have gone through this agent journey and this AI journey. They've been thinking about these things. They've actually sort of published a bit of this. And what they basically come up with is that as much as AI is new, it's also old. What that means is stick to the basics. So before you throw AI all over the place, go and ask users what problems they've got. Understand what the problems are and then match the AI to that. So AI can give us, these agents we're looking at, they can give us an assistant. They can give us a way to automate processes. They can give us a way to bring together and understand these large volumes of information and give us answers on that. They can make decisions for us. But do you have a process that has a problem? Are you short on time that you need help with some governance of your projects, for example? If you have those problems, cool, that maps across to a technology, which could be an agent or could be a chatbot or could be many other types of AI. Then prioritize what you're trying to do because you will come up with many things. Then they're saying, then realize there are many different types of AI and each relate to different problems. So research the valid AI and then start really small. So the whole thing is start small, fail fast. Do you remember that from 20 years ago? People were talking about this. It's still valid. So come up with a very basic little example. Spend a couple of days, a week working on something. Prove the concept. Okay. Then add more and add more and add more. You don't have to build out the end game in terms of this because it may not work. It's new. So start with something really simple and get going first. I think this is fairly wise advice from the Mayo Clinic. Now, another thing that they've realized is that once you bring agents in, and you realize that you get this type of thing. So if I go to Copilot here, I can create an agent. So let's create an agent. Okay. So it will allow me to come in, and there's some examples you could use. But basically, I need an agent to help project managers understand the project framework. Through text prompting, it will actually build this agent up for you. So stuff I did, the one I did before was done the wrong way around. It will actually start building this up for you. Okay. So yes, it's going to be called the project guide, and we can build this up. Now it's starting to actually come up and get smart and say, well, this is the type of thing you could start asking on terms of this. I can start saying what do I want to emphasize, what do I want to avoid, etc. And you'll see it'll start building out example prompts for you. It'll eventually, when you get to configure, you can start saying, hey, I want you to actually look at these documents, etc. So this is what I'm actually asking you to do. So you can build it, not hard to build. Hard to get right, okay? Well, not too hard, but to upsell our services, we're doing a lot of thinking about this for lessons. Have a chat to us. Thing to watch for. So what the Mayo Clinic has worked out, okay, you give people this capability. What do? They start building agents. So that sounded like a good idea until we have all these agents running all over the place. And we get agent sprawl, okay? And you don't necessarily have some governance on them. So you do need to think about governance is the very main thing. You've got agents, but underpinning anything AI now is really governance thinking. So who's creating them? Why are they creating them? Are they all using the right data? Are they coming up with trustworthy information? So in the old days, we talk about dashboards and reports have to be trustworthy. The output of your AI has to be trustworthy. You have to think about the decisions they're making and are they trustworthy and test them. You've also got to realize that people point at all kinds of data and on the point of what they've got. Most organizations have very bad data. So you need to, before you run away and start creating the agent, you've got to go and clean your data. Okay, this is the main thing. Some people don't like this idea because some people have made a profession out of updating spreadsheets. Unfortunately, that needs to lift up a level. So there is some employee resistance to AI. It's new, it's change. So treat it as a change project and show people how this can take a lot of grunt work off them and help them. Okay. And you do need to put guardrails in place. It is any new software, and it is acting autonomously, there will be some risks. You don't want these agents going too far off and making left field decisions here. So you need to put some guardrails in place. Okay, so final predictions as we get to Q&A. This is from Mayo Clinic. I thought, okay, I'm not going to come up with, I did actually come up with lists of predictions. I thought, I'm going to go for theirs. These guys are big, they know what they're doing. So for their final prediction is, don't try and predict where AI is going to go. Things are coming out of the woodwork. Things are happening all the time. That's why they say, focus on the problems, start small, and then realize you haven't invested so much. One AI thing, it'll take all your resources 1 year to build. Why don't you do a few small things and spend a month doing it and see how that goes? And then you'll work out where you need to go forward, okay? Because new stuff will come out all the time, okay? Get in there, use it, and just like we would say if you're implementing Elsa, start with something really basic, really small. I promise you, your requirements will change. Once you start using this thing, you will really understand what you need to do at that point, okay? And then the last thing is think about processes that are taking time and giving you a headache. Don't think about AI as just a plug-in gadget, which is kind of what people have focused on in the past. But think about the processes that are a pain, then see if AI is the solution in terms of that. Okay, I'm now going to stop talking because it's been about 40 or 50 minutes. I'm going to open this up to questions. Do we have anything in the chat, Eddie?
Not that I can see just yet.
No, that's all right. Does anyone, I'll stop sharing the screen, does anyone have any questions around any of this? You guys are usually quite noisy, so who wants to know? Okay, there's a pile of stuff in there. Okay, John is saying he's got bugs to fix and bills to pay. You need an agent to help you. I'll give an example of one. So John is one of our senior developers. You can have someone write code. An agent can help them do that. You can then send that code to another agent who can debug it for you. Then another agent who can improve it for you and send it back. Okay. Pat has added some AI around to record this thing. That's cool. Viv understands the joy of live demos. Yeah. Ask if Altus does RAID. Ben, yes, it does, and it will tell me that. Okay, so Pete's showing you a picture of pages. Monica, can we use AI to assist us to integrate defunct projects that insist on out of system? I'm not sure what you mean, interrogate defunct projects. So projects that are old, have ended. So yes, you could. You can think of it in two ways. If you've got projects that are in the system and are old and just being made inactive, it's going to pick those up automatically. That's easy. But what if you've got projects that are outside the system, pre-system, or were never migrated in? So we've been around. We are, Monica, I don't remember where you're from, but let's say you're in an organization that's been going for 30 years, and you're sitting on 20 years worth of data sitting in SharePoint there. You've now got a nice Altus system, it's got all the new stuff in it. But someone comes along and wants to create a new project, and you're like, I'm certain we've done this thing before. I'm sure we've learned something. I'm sure this business case has been put forward 5 times in the past, but there's 20 years of SharePoint data there. How do I get to all of this? Well, the agent can do exactly that. So the agent can look at 2 sources, look at your project system and look at all your documentation. It can learn that in a way that no human could ever read through all of that. And then you could come in and say, hey, Bob is trying to actually do something. Okay, life without barriers. Someone is trying to lower the barrier to life. Has this been done before? And it will go through and it will actually look at all of the past 20 years. And it will find the lessons, it will find what's been done already and figure this out for you. So it becomes, it's not just the assistant, it's the expertise. It's that grey-haired person who's learned every lesson and got every scar from the past of the organization that's now available to you. Okay, so that's essentially what it's about, and this is quite simple to do. So John is saying, can we have AI to create predictive models to answer when a product will finish, what will be its budget, and what will be the hurdles to complete the project? Yes, we can. So there's kind of 2 things to think of here. The stuff I've been talking about today is being generative AI, very much language-based. So it'll help you figure out hurdles, okay, based on your past lessons. So it's using the written word. When you start with the predictive models, you could do things like say, hey, you've done projects for the last 10 years. So I've got 500 projects sitting there. If you have a combination of Ryan and Ellie on a project, and it's a project of this type, and it involves IT, and it happens, over Christmas, you, on average, are going to take 10% longer. So this is exactly the type of thing the machine learning approach can actually do. A little bit more complicated because it really does rely on your data, but absolutely. And that's kind of what we were doing before everyone started focusing on the generative AI. Pat is asking, can we have AI read PDF data and input it into a spreadsheet? Example would be invoices. So short answer is yes. So Microsoft actually has a service that basically does that. So there are many different, Microsoft is a very powerful company with a lot of AI solutions. One of them is I have a model to read invoices in and specifically then do some reasoning to think, okay, based on what I'm seeing here, go and update the system in this way, or send it to this person or that person to get an approval, etc. So yeah, that's quite a known one. Okay, Kelly, I know an AI can build a generic schedule per project. Yeah, it can. How can the PMs then build it out more? How does that fit into the manual tasks that the EPM model should? Okay, so that example I showed you early on is just a generic schedule. It's gone out to the web and it said, hey, internet, tell me what you need to do to build an AI project, for example. It's come up with some stuff. So it's the equivalent of a brand new person, brand new project manager works on day one with some generic experience. You're like, no, you need to actually use a template, or you need to use, like you said, some mandatory tasks and things. So how about we have our agent go to the internet to get some general info, but as priority, look at your information. So you fed it a document that says, this is how we do schedules here. I want you to go to this level of detail. I want you to include this type of tasks. This is how you need to think about things. You need to be, if you're going to use constraints, and use these, etc. And it can then use that. So it's not even it's a template, but it's also the rules, the kind of process, the regulations, the policies you need. It can apply those as well. That is an easy thing to do. The new one that's coming from within Planner Premium, this is something we're hoping we'll be able to do, but we can do the stuff in Altus now anyway. If you just wanted, if you're using Altus, for example, you wanted to do that, this bit of customization to add it in, that's exactly what we use this type of agent for.
We might have missed a question, sorry, Ryan, from
Yeah,
Viv. I like the idea of starting with something small, but in a complex environment. How do you scope for this?
So I don't know. Okay, I will remember what you said. I didn't see that, but okay. How do you scope it in a? I feel that needs a discussion more than just an answer. So basically, how would you scope any small proof of concept type project? So I would
in a complex environment. Sorry, I'm happy to elaborate on that one. It's just that nothing is small. I love the idea, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do when it comes to AI. But I think nothing is small, right? You've got a complex environment. There's always hidden complexities and dependencies, etc., etc. So where you think it's small, but how do you sort of scope it? I guess, right? I know that's not. We don't have time in 14 minutes, but just broadly, if you've got any experience, that'd be good.
So broadly, it's going to lead you to that complexity, and that step one is to figure out how to model the complexity or focus on the data. So you will need to feed the AI with something. If you have a complex environment and you essentially feed that complex environment to the AI, it may work or it may get confused. So you need to first of all focus on that data. You need to see if you can simplify it and scope it down to say, okay, I realize it's complex, but we are going to pick 3 data sources. We're going to pick one process and 3 data sources to prove the concept. And then we will slowly build it out like that. I think you'll generally find that it will lead you to what you know is the problem first, is the underlying complexity will need to be simplified. But I don't mean simplify the organization. That's not going to happen. It's the representation of it needs to be created specifically for the AI, and then test that AI works, and then start introducing more and more of the pieces of that. So narrow scope the complexity first. But that's a very high level answer. I think we'll probably need to talk a bit wider about that. Okay. Anyone else got any questions? Okay, if you don't, I will let you go and have depending on what time zone you're in, go and have lunch. If you do want to talk about any of this stuff, please reach out and talk about it. I would love to talk to you about this. What you'll find is now we're at a point now where the technology is caught up to our hopes and dreams. We actually are able to really look at agents. So these are here, these are real. We are able to look at business processes. We're able to introduce agents into PMOs to solve problems that you've had forever and never been able to do anything about. Okay, which is things like governance, just dealing with too much information, just dealing with too much, too hard to make decisions, people not following rules, etc. So these are actually things that can be done now. Pete, yeah, see, we had spoken about the one on invoicing. Elizabeth has asked, will it be available? Yes, it will. So the early will send the recording out. So you're able to watch that. Okay, thank you all very much. Please reach out if you want to talk about it. I'd love to talk to you about these. Start some simple things for you. Get a couple of agents going. I think you will find very quickly, get some value in. The way to think about it is this: use, especially the PMO people in this course, a lot of you. If you lie awake, it's usually at 3 a.m. and you're like, I'm under pressure. I do not have the time or the people to deal with this problem. Write that down. That probably needs an agent. It's the underlying simple things, usually around governance, that agents do very well. Let's make your life easier, okay? Get some of that grunt off you so that you can come up a level and start focusing on value. So reach out. I will happily buy you a cup of coffee and talk about this with you. Okay, thank you all very much. Ellie, you want the
I'll wrap it up.
Next?
So thank you, Ryan. Thank you everyone for rocking up today. The session has been recorded and will be sent out at the end of the week. And we just have an upcoming webinar for February called Trends in Project Management for 2025. I will also send that out with the email, but you can also register online. So that wraps it up today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks very much. See you.